Yeah, the first guy that I killed in the war was it was in an ambush. There were only 8 of us, and we were in the jungle, and we were um, just going up this trail, and we heard the lid of a canteen bump against a metal canteen. So we knew the enemy was coming because we all had plastic canteens. So we stepped off. All we did was step off 1 step into the jungle, and then these 3 guys were coming down the trail. And we were supposed to just step out and capture them, but because we could keep them for intelligence. And when you see 3 guys, you know they are a point element. They're the first part of an enemy unit. They send 3 guys out front to set off any mines or set off any ambushes or anything that might happen. And so these 3 guys were a point group, and so we were supposed to just capture them and keep them quiet and then attack the main element when it came. But instead, American soldiers always have to shoot if you see the enemy. And so I was lined up on my guy in case we had to shoot, and he was walking along and talking to the guy behind him, and I could see the sweat on his forehead, and I just felt like, even though I only saw him for 30 seconds, I got to know him so well in that 30 seconds. And then all he did was reach up to adjust the strap that his weapon was hanging on. But when he did that, our guys felt it was a threat, so they started shooting. And so I shot him right through the chest. And then he ran away. I thought if I shot somebody, he'd fall down and die. But I shot him, and he took off running. And so I chased him. And he ran a little ways, just through a little screen of trees and out into a little clearing. And then he collapsed in the middle of it, which was just a little low spot. And so when I got up there, his guys started shooting at me. So I had to get down. And always when I shot somebody, I wanted to help them or fix them. And anyway, I couldn't get to him because his people were keeping me back. And his people couldn't get to him because I was there. So he laid there, and because his lungs were punctured, his chest was punctured, his chest would heave way up when he tried to breathe. And then he started moaning. And then he started calling for his mother. So I felt like I had to kill him. So I couldn't see him. All I could see was his backpack pointed toward me. So I lined up and shot him in the backpack. And a spray of rice came out from his rations and stuff. And he was quiet for a couple of minutes. And then he started moaning again. And I shot into his pack again. And he stopped again for a few minutes. And then he started moaning again. I didn't know what I could do, but then I aimed a little lower where I figured his hips probably were. And I shot him, and sure enough, he moved a little bit so I could see the back of his head. So then I lined up and shot him through the head. And it was terrible. It just felt terrible. This guy, and when, of course, his guys then went away. And when they did, I went up to him and I looked through his rucksack and I found his letters. They keep them in a plastic bag like we do. And then later on, I translated them, and they were from his sisters, and they were saying, "Oh, we hope you're not near the fighting, and we hope that you have food to eat." Anyway, here I just killed this guy, and I wish I would have had time to try to work something out with him, because anyway, he just wanted to go home, and I just wanted to go home. And the third guy I killed was running on a rice paddy dike sideways to me. And Smitty and I both pulled up on him, and I shot him in the chest, and Smitty shot him in the head, and it blew him sideways off the dike. And we went down, went through his stuff, and I found his letters, and in his, he had pictures. And he had a picture of him in North Vietnam in his full dress uniform with his arm around this woman. And then there was another picture of him in his khaki trail uniform with his arm around a different woman. And then there were 2 more pictures that were obviously taken in the South with his arm around different women. I said, man, I could have gotten along with this guy. Here I've gone and killed him, and he's a guy we probably could have gotten along really well. But I always wanted to, after I shot people, I got this urge to try to help them. And in another instance, we surprised a group of North Vietnamese that were asleep in this dry stream bed. And when we surprised them, they got up and started running and jumping over rocks. And I pulled up on one guy, and I thought I hit him, but I wasn't sure. So then when we got up to there were big boulders, and we thought they were hiding down in the boulders. And so I started calling for him to surrender, "Tot tai lin, bao shang shui, larai." Throw your weapon, put up your hands, come here. And after I did that 4 or 5 times, this guy did surrender. And he came up, and when I shot at him, I hit him in the back of the knee, and it blew his lower leg almost completely off. There was about enough tissue left about the size of my thumb. And his buddies had put a tourniquet on him. So I took out my pocket knife and finished cutting his leg off. And of course, he was in shock. And I went to the medic to get some morphine for him, but we were not allowed to use any medicine on enemy or civilians. But I kind of threatened to beat up the medic unless he gave me some morphine. So he gave me a 1/4 grain of morphine. So I gave it to the guy, and then the sergeant said, "No, if you want to keep him alive, you have to carry him." And they were only going to the top of the next little hill. So I carried him to the top of the hill. Then I went back and got my rucksack and carried it there. And when I got there, the sergeant said I had to turn him over to the medic, and I had to go out and pull a spot in a position around the perimeter. So I did. And the next day, I saw the medic, and he said, "Oh, your guy died during the night," which I figured he probably, that was okay. I figured he probably did. But then when I went out to take a shit, I went down the hill, and I was squatted down against a tree, and I looked to my right, and there he was, laying there dead with all this wire wrapped around his neck. It turns out right after I turned him over to the medic put this wire around his neck and choked him to death because he didn't want to guard him all night. So anyway, I wound up